A lot of Western startups enter Southeast Asia with confidence, strong product, proven playbooks, and a sense of urgency. But traction often stalls, not because the region isn't ready, but because what worked in the US or the EU doesn't hold up in Southeast Asia's real-world conditions. And this isn't a cultural misread, it's very much structural. And this is exactly what we're discussing today. So people do not shop the same way over here, distribution isn't linear, and price sensitivity and trust behave differently by region, not even by country. In this case study today, I'll share how Colgate lost Indonesia to Pepsodent. And I'm sure all of you probably know Colgate toothpaste, so it might be a very interesting case study for you to understand. And you will know why even small GTM assumptions like packaging size or local certifications had massive consequences. You'll also see what smart operators did differently. How local packaging, rural first channels, or regional tone shifts help unlock growth where global templates actually failed. Now, this video is very relevant if you are expanding, fundraising, or leading GTM in Southeast Asia, including all Southeast Asian countries from Singapore, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and so on. This might save you a year worth of learning the hard way. So let's start and get into it. Southeast Asia is a huge market. You're looking into 460 million internet users active. And obviously the digital economy now reached 295 billion in 2025, and things are getting better in Southeast Asia compared to other markets. Now, this case study, which is Colgate, is quite interesting. They had the same GTM playbook, and they decided to utilize it in Philippines and Indonesia when they want to go for Southeast Asia. And this exact playbook failed miserably in Indonesia, but was very successful in the Philippines. And that was something interesting and alarming to the GTM leaders in Colgate. The thing is, Colgate, when they started, they assumed Southeast Asia, okay, we have a region called Southeast Asia, we have a region called South America, North America. So they just simply call it a region, right? And they allocated a specific set of things that needs to be done in their go-to-market strategy. And that's exactly what happened. They said, you know what, it is what it is. Let's start the same thing what we did in Philippines and in Indonesia. So what happened was, obviously, one size fit all approach did not really work out in Indonesia. Now, why did it fail? So this is exactly what we're discussing today, and go straight away to the point. It's a very simple thing. Number one was the local competition and the distribution strategy. So Colgate was ignored in the local market compared to Pepsodent. And at that time, Pepsodent had about 60% of the local market share for toothpaste. And the reason why Colgate lost this edge, because they actually did not build a local production channel, or at least an OEM factory based in Indonesia to produce something that is made in Indonesia. The second thing was they were at that point of time relying on imports from Thailand. And the other point that was also a catastrophe for them is that they've been using a lot of third-party distributors. Now, they were underperforming, they were not doing so well, and the way the branding and the whole positioning was going really haywire for them that time. So they lost control, they had a weak reach, and of course their cost was ridiculously high compared to their competitor. And this exact same playbook actually worked in the Philippines completely fine. The other thing that they lacked product localization in Indonesian taste. So what was the issue with that is that if you are using a certain flavor, and in Indonesia specifically, there was a lot of favorable oral care ingredients that everybody liked at that time and still like, which is betel leaf and miswak. Now, these two flavors have been missed from Colgate's initial product launch, and it was very irrelevant, the choices of taste that they had, which is the minty taste, the standard ones. Therefore, led to something that is not really relevant for the local community. And those international standards just gives really generic perception for Indonesians' way of looking at things. Not only to mention that they didn't emphasize on the halal certification. So halal certification, if you have been to Indonesia, Malaysia, or any Muslim majority country, especially in Southeast Asia, it's heavily emphasized. They even have halal certification certification on water, for God's sake. So definitely it's something so important to emphasize on and to push during your go-to-market strategy. If you fail to do so, you are just getting a lot of question marks, a lot of red flags over your brand at the early stage. You're already losing the momentum, and first impression lasts. You don't want somebody to claim that you are not aligned with the local values, and that's exactly what happened with Colgate. Now, English language branding is another thing that was not the best choice. However, Philippines is very westernized, and I was completely fine in the Philippines. So generic marketing and messaging, if you have a playbook and this generic marketing is that you say, well, I only have messages that are allocated for Southeast Asia, that's still irrelevant. It's still not the right fit, and you should avoid this completely. You should go deeper into what's the difference between Philippines, even go region by region. Indonesia, same thing goes. And that's exactly what's being shared in the slide. I'm not going to read it for you, but I'm just giving you an idea or a summary. Now, one of the things that you need to be careful of going to Indonesia, and this is exactly what I even advise my partners who are coming and using Expand these services to go to Indonesia. If your pricing is not aligned with Indonesian competitors and what Indonesians perceive as value versus money, you are just failing in the game. As simple as that. So, for example, in Colgate's case, they were selling large tubes of paste. Why? Why are you doing that at the early stage? Why can't you sell those small sachets or small packages that give some sort of like early test, okay? And it's going to be cheaper, obviously. So they didn't do that. They were just sticking with the same packaging that they standardized across various countries, and they just pushed it over here in Indonesia. So you had a price sensitivity problem. Obviously, they did not adapt, and the local production was a disadvantage in Indonesia and also an advantage in Philippines. So I don't know what makes them not set up a factory in Indonesia, but they already set up a factory in Philippines. Maybe there was a delay of setting up a factory in Indonesia, but they were just excited to push to the fact that maybe, just maybe, and people in Indonesia will be fine with something that has been imported from Thailand, and they are, but the pricing skyrocketed for them. And therefore, it impacted how they can be successful over here in Indonesia. And of course, going back to what I highlighted, which is when you're looking into the price-sensitive market, you need to be very careful about how you plan to cut your cost. You need to cut your cost. Now, how are you going to do it? Is it going to be lower product feature? Is it going to be lower product? Is it like much lower size for Colgate? And I need to know that there's a daily spending behavior for Indonesians. Now, I need to align the packaging with what would Indonesians do if they are trying a new product. It's different. Like if I'm gonna check my competitors and they're having this large size product, okay, compared to me, I'm just gonna take that as a copy paste. It's gonna be a nightmare for my GTM. So I need to be careful on how we can do that. So how can we fix it? There's 5 fixes that I think if you implement it, if you're planning to go to Southeast Asia, specifically Indonesia, you will easily can cut down at least 9 months of potential failures just looking at these 5 steps. Now, you need to make sure, okay, if it's a physical product, I need to make sure I need to invest in a local production. Even if it's gonna take you long, you don't care. You don't care. You don't just simply go to the market and say, I'm gonna test it. Look, you need to make sure that you have a production facility secured for you in this country. This is the only way to move forward if you really want to cut your cost. Producing overseas, getting it in Indonesia, you'll have tariffs, you'll have taxes, you will have other problems that you will be dealing with, which are now being pushed by the local government, which is Indonesia First Brands. All this stuff will impact all your strategy. So you need to be careful about that. And this is something you need to understand. Number 2 would be the product localization and how to make it relevant. So again, localizing using Bahasa Indonesia, which is a local language over here, is not really the only way to do it. And I'm sure you already know that. You need to make sure the values, which is like Muslim values, like halal certification and all of that, need to be pushed in your marketing. Obviously, preferences, taste, kind of taste, like for example, in Colgate's case, they need to have the miswak flavor, the betel leaf flavor. All this stuff is a big deal, and it impacts everything on your product market fit, on your message market fit, literally everything. And obviously, the local lifestyle. So when we're looking to that, that's exactly how I would summarize it. They should have highlighted their certifications, that is local certifications. They should have focused on traditional ingredients because that's a big deal in Indonesia. They should have adapted the formula and made small tweaks in all of that. Now, you need to understand one of the things that they also failed at is that if you look to Indonesia as a whole, that's also a bad idea. So you need to figure out the key regions in Indonesia. So you have Java, which is the urban rural side, and it has the largest population. Then you have Sumatra, which is a distinct culture with strong local pride. And then you have the eastern Indonesia, which is very underserved, and they only trust the community leaders. Now, if you looked at that from this kind of mapping perspective, you can easily run pilot campaigns and test it. This campaign will be most likely different from the other campaign. You will try to use, in Indonesia, there's about 300 ethnic tribes across Indonesia. So I'll try to see what is the most, I would say, majority tribe and focus on their dialects, get an influencer from there and utilizing in my marketing activity. And obviously you need to have some sort of customized tone, not overly formal, have slight humor that is relatable to certain ethnicity groups, to partner with trusted community voices and adapt to that, as simple as that. Now, again, this is one of the fixes, and it's very obvious from the pains that I highlighted earlier: flexible pricing and packaging. It's a big deal. You need to have flexible options. You like option 1, option 2, option 3. And the first option is obviously the budget friendly, and then if they want to upgrade, they can upgrade. So you need to make sure that shopping behavior, especially in the first time shopping for a new brand as an Indonesian, they will think so much about, okay, you know what, I have daily budget and I have this budget allocated for toothpaste, but this is a new brand, I could try it, but wait a second, it's too big and it might be too expensive. Nah, don't want. So this is exactly what you need to think of in terms of behavior. So if, let's say, I'm an entry level, I just entered the country, probably I'm going to go for small packages first, and I'm going to push the option 1. And then the option 2 is going to be mainly for the ones who already purchased from me before, they like my brand and they don't want to think so much. Most likely they're going to go for option 2, and it's much more economical and I can push that. And option 3 is the one who are mainly loyal to my brand and they really align with whatever we do, and everything is 100%. They are really sold on the quality of our product, our ingredient, and they love how the values of our brand aligns with their values. So this is what we call really going on to matching the right price with the right personas, with the right market, and so on. Okay, number 5, align messaging with local values and context. I have said it many times, and this is just more to emphasize the importance of it. There are 4 important things and 4 important values that you need to be careful of in your communication. Number 1 is family. You need to focus on the family values. You need to focus on the religion values. Christians here are very Christian. Muslims here are very Muslim. You need to make sure that you are sensitive to their values and align with it. Of course, community and national pride. You have no clue how important it is, but it's a really big deal. And once you make sure you have these points in place, your messaging will be fully aligned with the culture, the values, and obviously you can accelerate your GTM and avoid losing 10 to 12 months of failures caused firing and hiring and all of this mess that I have been seeing across various go-to-market strategies, whether it's physical brands, digital brands, and so on. And honestly speaking, at the end of the day, this is a case study. I have finished it, and you can always check these slides. It's in the description below if you want to have a look at it again. That's about it. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.